Today we're going to become ecologists. We're going to study this park and see how many different animal and plant species we can find. That way we can determine how healthy the environment is, starting with the Salt Marsh.
So we've just come along the edge of the Salt Marsh. Luke, what'd you find?
I just found a couple of ducks. Now these guys are really cool. Now they're actually blue-winged teals and mallard ducks living in harmony on this really cool salt marsh. They're just such a cool species. They got these little blue patches on the sides. They're very beautiful ducks. So here they are. The 360. Nice.
All right, so we just kind of left the Salt Marsh area and we're coming up to another retention pond, but this is covered with mangrove trees, as you can see right here. I believe, Luke, is that a black mangrove?
Alright guys, we just came across a black mangrove. Now the way I can tell the black mangrove apart from the white mangrove and the red mangrove is actually the leaf size, shape, color, and even the root systems. Red mangroves have kind of projecting roots, and black mangroves actually have roots that come out of the ground like dead man's fingers, and that's what they call them. And so they grow out of the ground like this and all up around the base of the actual tree, and that's how you can tell it's a black mangrove. Now black mangroves and all mangrove species are super important for the environment because they actually build islands and are also one of the #1 resistors to erosion from hurricanes and other damaging winds. These plants are an important organism in our ecological study today, and I'm pretty happy to see them out here.
So you may be wondering, why is ecology even important? Well, the reason why it's important is because you want to know your local biodiversity and why we should be protecting and conserving these lands. You can't protect something if you don't know it even exists in your area.
Are you sure about that?
So Luke showed us the black mangrove, and this is a white mangrove. And the way to tell the difference is actually by the leaf structure. The leaves are round and usually tattered. Almost every leaf on this tree has some sort of tattered edges. Let's continue along this trail taking us through the park.
Yep, we're going to continue walking along this salt marsh, and then it'll eventually lead into a forest, and I'm really excited to get back there because there should be some bigger critters. I actually see 2 birds just flying to that tree.
Cool. All right, so now we're going to leave the salt marsh and cross into the forest, but we got to be careful, make sure there's no cars coming. Don't want to get bulldozed.
So what is ecology and what is an ecologist? Now we did a video on this last week, so if you want to learn more, right here is the video. But basically an ecologist is just someone who studies animals and plants and environment. So let's hit the trail and see what else we can find. We were just walking down this path and walked right past this little dove right here. These guys' feathers are perfectly camouflaged for this environment. We could have walked right past them and never noticed them.
Check it out, Luke. I found a Sri Lankan weevil.
Oh, no way.
This is one of the few insect species that I've seen that's relatively common out here. This is the second one that we found, but I know there's been more. I just haven't been looking for them. How cool is that?
Now these guys actually blend in pretty well because they are fully white, and if you notice, most of the trees here have a white base. So these guys can blend in pretty well on those trees.
Which is quite unusual, being bright white, right?
It is. Now these guys aren't a native species, but most weevil species actually survive very well in America. It's pretty interesting to see invasive species in this little park.
So for the BioBlitz today, we're looking at species diversity. But what does that mean? We're going to look at 2 metrics. The first is species diversity.
Wow.
The first is species richness. What does that mean? Well, it just means the number of different species living in an environment. And we're not only looking at plants or only looking at reptiles. As ecologists, we have to take into account everything. The second metric is relative abundance. So that's how many individuals there are of a specific species. For example, we saw multiple mockingbirds today, so we'd have to count each mockingbird that we saw in that relative abundance metric. That looks an awful lot like a pine tree, Luke. What is it?
It's actually a beech she oak from Australia. Sadly, these guys are invasive and they take out other trees that should be here, like all of the pine trees that are native. You see a lot of these on barrier islands, which is really sad. They were brought here, they have been really taking over, so pretty unfortunate. But I see a bunch of them here in this specific park. 20 to 30 trees here. They've been doing very good in Florida. That's a rabbit.
Spotted one of the few mammal species living in the park. Luke, what is this?
This is coyote food. This is a...
Eastern cottontail.
One cool fact about eastern cottontails is that they actually can't digest their food very well. So once they eat it, they'll eventually poop it out and then eat it again so they can gain more nutrients. Pretty cool species.
So we're walking along the path and I think I just heard something. Let's creep around the corner and see what it is.
It would be a big animal, whatever it is.
Yeah, it was loud. Maybe like a coon or something? There's a clear patch right there. Check it out. Dude, no way. A yodi. So Luke, tell us a little bit about that coyote.
These coyotes are really special predators in this specific habitat. The beach is less than a mile away from where their den is. They'll be walking for miles hunting on the beach, eating sea turtle eggs, and in these parks, they eat those cottontail rabbits.
Super opportunistic generalists out here. They have to be able to feed on whatever they can because of how small the park is.
So it's really cool to see these coyotes thrive.
Yeah, I'm surprised we have an apex predator in here.
We hope you learn more about how to become an ecologist.
Stay tuned for next week where we show you how to become an aquatic ecologist.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of To All Boys. If you want to learn more about other species of Florida, click right here.
We'll see you guys next time. Get out and get wild. So Luke, we just talked about the black mangrove, but this is another iconic Florida species. What is this plant?
Yes, this is actually the cabbage palm. It's actually the state tree of Florida, and it's a very important species. How? Look it up.